Ever feel like you're trapped? Yeah, like trapped in a bureaucratic spider web.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah,
Especially here in Peru.
exactly. So today we are going to try to unravel that web,
We're going deep.
deep dive into Peruvian administrative law.
The heart of it.
Specifically, the Leydel Procedimientoadministrativo General.
You know it, the LPEG.
The LPEG. Think of it as, what is it, like the playbook?
The playbook, yeah, for dealing with any Peruvian government entity.
And trust me, whether you are, I don't know, starting a business or finally trying to get those permits in order.
Or just, even just trying to understand your basic rights.
This document, it's your secret weapon.
It is.
We're going deep into the actual legal text on this one.
The real deal.
The Texto, Único, Ordenadode de la Ley and Degree 27444.
Straight from the Ministry of Justice and Rights.
Straight from the source. This is your cheat sheet.
Consider it that, yeah.
To understand how things really work.
How they really work down here.
Yeah.
And you know what I find fascinating about the LPEG?
What's that?
It's not just about, restricting what you can and can't do.
Okay.
It actually lays out, and it's surprisingly clear, a framework
Okay.
for how citizens, everyday people, can actually participate in the administrative process.
Wait, so we're not talking about just submitting forms and just hoping.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Article 1.12 of the LPEG, it specifically emphasizes citizen participation.
Okay, so break that down for me. What does that really mean?
It means you have a voice,
Okay.
a way to actually engage with this system.
Not just be subjected to it.
Well, not just pushed around by it.
Exactly.
You're part of the process.
That's a very refreshing perspective, honestly, because I think a lot of times people, they feel powerless.
Oh, absolutely.
When they're facing these bureaucratic hurdles. But what you're saying is that the LPAG, it offers some leverage.
It offers real leverage, and it goes, honestly, even deeper than that.
Okay, how so?
Remember Article 2 of the Peruvian Constitution?
The one about the right to petition the government?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That one. That right is directly quoted, word for word.
Wow.
It's reinforced within the LPAG.
Okay.
And here's the thing. Here's the really important part. You're not just shouting into a void.
Right.
You're petitioning. You have the right to a written response. And not just whenever they feel like it. Within a legally defined time frame.
So no more disappearing into the bureaucratic abyss.
No more.
We're talking about accountability.
Big time. And that accountability,
Yeah.
it's woven into the fabric of the LPAG.
Okay.
It sets specific rules, deadlines, for how government entities, big and small, interact. And not just with citizens, with each other.
Wow.
It's all in there.
So what you're saying is this is starting to sound less like a bureaucratic nightmare.
Well, it's like a horror movie. Yeah.
And more like what? Like a system with, rules that can be understood.
Understood.
And used potentially to your advantage.
100%. And that's the key takeaway here. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
Especially navigating Peruvian administrative law.
Okay, so we've established, I think, pretty clearly that the LPAG, it's essential for anyone who's dealing with Peruvian bureaucracy.
It really is.
But I have to say, it's a dense legal document.
It's a lot to take in.
It's a lot. So where do we even begin to unpack this?
Well, one of the most insightful sections, and I think it's often overlooked, is Article V.
Article V.
It outlines the hierarchy of the legal sources that shape administrative procedures.
Okay.
Understanding that hierarchy, I'm telling you, it is crucial
For
predicting how decisions are made and what that legal basis is.
So it's almost like having that behind-the-scenes look at
Yeah.
how the bureaucratic machine operates.
You got it.
Understanding the why
The why behind the what.
behind the what.
Exactly. It's about recognizing every decision, every single form, every interaction, it's rooted in this legal framework.
Right.
Once you understand that, you see the bigger picture. You can strategize.
And that's what makes this so interesting, right?
Yes.
Because it's not just about blindly following these procedures.
No.
It's about understanding the rules of the game
Yes.
and then using those to your advantage. It's like learning to play chess instead of checkers.
That's a great way to put it.
Right.
Yeah, take, for example, the concept of acto administrativo,
Okay.
defined in Article 8.
Okay.
Basically, any decision made by a government entity.
Yeah.
But, and this is big but, understanding the components of an acto administrativo
Okay.
and how it can be challenged. That's crucial for anybody who's serious about navigating the system effectively.
So we're talking about, like, dissecting these bureaucratic decisions, understanding their DNA,
Yes.
and potentially finding, like, flaws or vulnerabilities. Yes.
That can be used to challenge those unfair outcomes.
You got it. It's about leveling that playing field, right? By understanding the rules of the game, even the ones that aren't so obvious.
This is incredible. This is actually incredibly empowering.
It is.
So we have this powerful tool at our disposal, the LPAG.
We do.
But how does this play out in real-life situations? Let's say, for example, our listener is trying to, I don't know, open up that cute little cafe in Barranco.
Love it.
But they're stuck. They're stuck in permit limbo.
Classic.
How can the LPAG help them navigate that?
I think that's where the real magic of the LPAG comes in.
Okay.
Because it doesn't just, like, outline the rules, right?
Right.
It provides recourse.
Okay.
When those rules aren't followed or when things just go completely sideways. Okay, so we're talking about, like, fighting back against these bureaucratic roadblocks.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me more.
So imagine this, right? You've submitted your permit application. You've dotted your I's, you've crossed your T's.
Of course.
But the response, it's either delayed or it's negative, just straight up no.
The worst.
The LPAG, it provides several avenues to challenge that.
Okay, so it's like hitting the, I don't know, like the unstuck button on a bureaucratic process gone haywire.
100%, yeah.
What are our options?
So first, you've got the option of a reconsideration.
Okay.
Which is essentially asking the same entity to reevaluate their initial decision. Maybe you present some new evidence, you highlight errors in their initial assessment.
So it's like a chance to make your case again. But like maybe with some, I don't know, like fresh insights or information that maybe they overlooked the first time.
Yeah, it's a more informal approach, like just saying, hey, come on, take another look at this. You missed something really crucial here.
Right, right. And if that doesn't work,
then we escalate.
What's our next move?
That's where an appeal comes in.
Ooh, an appeal.
Yeah, this involves taking your case to a higher authority.
So going over their heads
Amazing.
Straight to like the, I don't know, the managerial level of bureaucracy?
You could say that, yeah, an appeal is definitely more formal.
Okay.
It usually involves, you know, a written submission, potentially a hearing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a bigger deal.
So knowing when to choose which, like reconsideration versus appeal,
Right.
that seems pretty crucial.
It is.
How do we know which path to take?
Well, it really depends on, like, the specifics of your situation.
Okay.
Right. If you believe that the initial decision maker, maybe they made an honest mistake or they just overlooked something really important or they misinterpreted a regulation, a reconsideration, that might be totally sufficient.
Okay.
However,
Yeah.
if you suspect something a little more serious is going on, like maybe a violation of due process, an abuse of discretion, a decision made without a real legal basis, an appeal might be the stronger approach.
I mean, this is where having a good lawyer
absolutely.
who understands like the ins and outs of the LPAG can make all the difference.
100%, yeah. Navigating the intricacies of administrative law, crafting this like really compelling legal arguments. Ensuring that all the procedural requirements are met.
Yeah.
It's a lot, you know, and honestly, it's best left to the professionals.
Sure.
But even for those who choose to go it alone.
Yeah.
Understanding those basic, like, fundamental principles of the LPAG, it can be incredibly empowering.
It's like having the blueprint to the bureaucratic machine, right?
Yes.
You might not be the engineer,
Right.
but you can spot like a loose screw or a faulty wire.
100%.
I didn't point it out.
And sometimes, honestly, just pointing out those flaws. That's all it takes to get things moving in the right direction.
So we've got these avenues for recourse, like these tools to actually fight back against these bureaucratic injustices.
Yes.
But it feels like even with all of these safeguards in place, there's still room for entities to make like just wrong calls, to misinterpret the rules, or even to act beyond like their actual authority.
You're absolutely right. I mean, the LPAG, it's like any other legal framework. It's open to interpretation.
Of course.
And that's where things get especially tricky.
So what happens when an entity isn't just making like a bad call within the rules, but they're actually acting outside of their like legal boundaries?
Right.
Is there any recourse for citizens in those situations?
There is, and that's where this fascinating and honestly potentially game-changing concept within the LPAG comes in.
Okay.
It's called the via de hecho.
Via de hecho.
Via de hecho. And it refers to situations where an entity acts completely outside of its legal authority, essentially going rogue.
Okay, now things are getting interesting. So we're talking about entities like going off script, exceeding their mandate. Like, what happens then?
This is where the LPAG throws like a curveball, like a real legal loophole that can completely upend the entire system, because it's no longer about whether they follow the procedures correctly.
Right.
It's about whether they even have the authority to make that decision in the first place.
So, okay, back to our cafe scenario.
Right.
Let's say the entity that's denying the permit had no legal grounds to do so.
Right.
They were exceeding their authority. Is that a via de hecho situation?
It is, precisely.
Okay.
And this is where understanding this concept becomes really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Because it allows citizens to challenge decisions, not just on procedural grounds,
Right.
but on the very legitimacy of the entity's action.
So it's like this trump card.
Kind of, yeah.
It's like a way to say, not only was your decision wrong, you weren't even allowed to make it in the first place.
Yeah, that's a powerful legal argument to make,
Right.
but it can be very, very complex.
Right.
It requires this really deep understanding of both the LPAG, obviously, and the specific legal boundaries of each entity.
I imagine this is where, again, having a legal expert in your corner becomes essential.
100%. Yeah.
It's not just about knowing the rules of the game. It's about understanding the limits of the playing field itself. It's like arguing that the ref who called the penalty wasn't even supposed to be officiating the game, right?
Yeah, talk about, throwing a real wrench into the works.
Right, right.
But here's the thing about via de hecho. It's not like a magic bullet.
Right.
You need solid evidence to prove that the entity actually overstepped. And that's where things can get,
Tricky.
Yeah.
So it's not enough to just shout, like, via de hecho,
Right.
and just watch the bureaucratic walls just crumble around you.
Sadly, no. It takes, meticulous documentation, a really thorough understanding of that entity's, legal mandate.
Right.
And honestly, often the guidance of a lawyer, somebody who knows, the real ins and outs of this stuff.
Right, who can actually navigate this.
Exactly.
Yeah, because it's complex.
It is.
But it sounds like even just understanding this concept,
Right.
even if you're not, a legal expert yourself,
Yeah.
it can be empowering.
Absolutely.
It's like having, I don't know, like a secret weapon
Yeah.
in your arsenal. Like, you might not need to use it often, but knowing that it exists, it can really change the game.
It changes how you play.
Exactly.
100%. And I think, the LPAG, for all its complexities at its heart,
Right.
it's really about empowering citizens
Okay.
to navigate this system
Coercively.
fairly.
Right.
And that includes knowing, when to challenge, how to challenge,
Right.
when decisions are made that honestly go beyond those bounds of legitimate authority.
This has been incredible.
It's a fascinating topic.
It is. We've gone from feeling totally lost in the bureaucratic jungle
Oh, yeah.
to uncovering these hidden pathways
Right.
and even wielding these powerful legal tools.
They are tools.
Yeah.
They're in there.
So for our listener who's, feeling ready to tackle Peruvian bureaucracy head on, armed with all of this newfound LPAG knowledge,
Yes.
what's the best place for them to actually start?
Honestly, dive into that source material we've been talking about.
Okay.
The Texto Único Ordenadode de la Ley N27444. I know.
It's a mouthful.
It's dense.
It's a lot.
It's a lot to take in. But even just a basic understanding
Right.
can make all the difference.
And of course, never underestimate the power of a good lawyer,
Always.
especially one that specializes in administrative law.
100%.
They can be your guide,
Yeah.
your translator
For advocate.
in this crazy complex world.
It's essential.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So to our listener, go forth
Go for it.
and navigate those Peruvian bureaucracies with confidence. And remember, we're always here,
Always here.
diving deep into the topics that matter to you.
Until next time.